Now we're going to find the max and mins of our graphs, and I believe your homework's going to call them turning points. So example 3, graph the function using a standard viewing window and then list the turning points. Okay, so let's go into our y equals and clear that out. And let's type in our function. So we have 3x cubed, remember to arrow over, plus 9x squared, and squared does have a button all for itself. So if we have x squared, it just is squared, and we're out of the exponent already, and then minus 4. Now, it says standard viewing window. In general, standard viewing window means that we need to hit zoom 6. But I know from the last thing I did that I used a standard viewing window in example 2. So I'm just going to hit graph because I know it's already in standard viewing window. Okay, so here is my graph. Now I want to list my turning points. So here, excuse me, you can see the graph is increasing and now it's turning right here, which that's a max. And then it's coming back down. And then it's going to come down and now it's going to turn around and there's my min and then come back up. So I have 1, 2 turning points here. Again, turning points are just max and mins. So to find our turning points, we will first hit calc, which we get to by second trace. And then you need to pick the right one, but you will either select number 3 if you want a min, or number 4 if you want a max. Okay, so let's try it. If I want to find this turning point up here first, that's my max. So I'm going to hit second trace. And I either am going to arrow down to number 4 or just punch in number 4 for our maximum. So it wants the left bound. So if what I'm wanting to find is this max up here, I want to go somewhere over here to the left side of that max. So somewhere over there in my graph. So I'm going to use my arrow key and I'm going to take my cursor and move it over to the left. It does not matter where it is. It just needs to be to the left. So this can be closer to that max. It can be way down here. I'm going to go a little bit closer, but just somewhere to the left of that maximum. So hit enter, and now it wants the right bound. The right bound, again, if this is my max, I want to go somewhere to the right of it, but I don't want to go past that other turning point. So I need to go somewhere right here in my graph. Okay, so somewhere to the right of that max or of that turning point, but not so far to the right that I pass the other turning point. I'm going to go right over here. And as for guess, literally have no idea what guess is for, but what you can do is check to make sure that these arrows are on the outside of wherever that max is. So yes, it is on the outside of it. So I'm going to hit enter one more time, and here is my max at -2,8. Max at -2,8. Okay, so now let's find the min. Here's my second turning point, which was a minimum. So go second trace, and this time I want number 3. So either arrow down or just hit in 3. I'm going to ask again, left and right bound. So if this is my min, I want to go somewhere to the left but not past this other turning point here. So I need to be in between the two again. So somewhere to the right, but not past the other turning point. So I'm going to go a little closer to it, but somewhere right in there. So that is to the left of this turning point of this minimum. So hit enter. Now it wants the right. So if this is my min, I need somewhere over here to the right. Any of that, rest of that will work right there. Hit enter through the guess, and here is my minimum. Now I'm actually really glad it did this. And sometimes your calculator is going to do this, and I don't know why it does and doesn't. My min, I did not get an x of 0. You might have actually x equals 0, and if you do, hooray. But I do want you to watch this in case this happens in your calculator. If you didn't get x equals 0, you might have got something like this, and honestly, it probably doesn't even match this number exactly. When you get a number like that, that is the same as them writing this in scientific notation. So this is negative 1.378. That e to the 6th is the same as doing times 10 to the negative 6th power. So what we would have to do is take this decimal here and move it 6 times to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's now where my decimal is. And I would put zeros and all of those as placeholders. So this number is negative 0.00001378. This number is basically 0. So that's what we're going to call that number. So anytime you get something e to the negative number, that's always 0. So we're going to call this 0, -4, which is where my min is. Example 3. Graph the function y equals what is the turning point. This one doesn't tell me a viewing window either. This one told me standard. This one doesn't tell me any of them. When this happens, and this isn't always going to work, but when you have no window given, we are first going to try zoom 0, which is for your zoom fit. And we're going to get real familiar with that zoom 0 as we go further in the class. So I'm going to go to y equals, clear this out, and type this in. So when you have a negative out front, make sure you start with -17 x squared minus 70x plus 270. So I'm actually just going to go ahead and hit graph really quickly. If I hit graph, that is what I get. So it went up, it came back down, means my turning point is way up here, but I don't see that. So what I am is I'm too zoomed in, my window is just not correct. So because I can see I've had those two outer sections right here, that's when the zoom 0 is going to work perfectly. If I hit zoom, and you can either just hit 0, and that's what I'm usually going to do, but I want you just to be able to see what I'm selecting here. So I'm wanting to hit that zoom 0, that zoom fit. So either 0 or go down to 0, and I'll hit enter. Here is my graph now. What that zoom fit does is it takes my window and it keeps my X, max, and min to be the same, and it adjusts my Y accordingly so I can see the whole graph in there. Now, I can get what I need from here, to be honest with you. My turning point's up here, but don't be afraid to kind of play around with that window. If this is the turning point that I need, I really don't need any of this extra space down here. So if I go back into my window, my Y min is incredibly large. I'm going to change it to a -50. And now my graph looks a little bit better. Okay. Again, I didn't have to do that, but if you want it to fit in that window a little bit better, I got rid of a lot of that space that we weren't using. So now let's find that turning point. So we'll go to Calc, which is second, trace. And from that graph, that is a max right there. So I want number 4, the maximum. I want the left bound. I am on the right side of where this max is. So I'm going to arrow over. I'm going to go somewhere over here where I am clearly to the left of that max. Hit enter. Now it wants the right bound. Now I'll go back over here to the right of that max. Hit enter. That guess. Just make sure that those arrows are on the outside of wherever your max is. And here is my max. Doesn't tell me how to round. MyMathLab will, of course, tell you how to round. So for us, let's just go to maybe 2 decimal places. So if I go -2.0, that 8 makes that 5 go up to a 6, comma, 342, again, 0.0, and then that 8 makes that 5 round up to a 6. So this is my turning point. 5 or up, you round up. 4 or less, it stays the same. So there is my max for this problem.